Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 55, Cossipore Garden and Mahasamadhi. With the Cossipore Garden, we enter upon the last chapter of Sri Ramakrishna's eventful life. It was here that the curtain fell upon his varied activities on the physical plane. On the eve of his exit from the arena of the world, the Master showed himself at his highest, and making Narendra Nath, known to the world as Swami Vivekananda, the fit instrument for the propagation of his ideas, entrusted to him the charge of his flock. The spirit which had put on a vesture of flesh for the fulfillment of a great purpose, at its completion cast off its temporary covering and returned to its pristine state of glory. The pathos and sublimity of this closing scene, therefore, can only be felt, not described. The Cossipore Garden is a beautiful one, about 5 acres in extent, abounding in fruit trees and flowering plants, and is situated on the right side of the road that runs north from Calcutta to Baranagar. For a little over 8 months, the Master stayed here and patiently bore the sufferings of the disease till his tall and robust frame was reduced to a skeleton, and he finally succumbed. But his trained mind was not affected, and he looked after the individual as well as the collective welfare of his devotees as before. With redoubled energy, he set himself to complete the work that he had commenced long ago at Dakshineshwar. Here he gave the greatest manifestation of his powers, and the devotee saw the fulfillment of his prophecies regarding his own end. I shall make the whole thing public before I go, when people in large numbers will know and whisper about the greatness of this body. Then the mother will take it back. Devotees will be sifted into inner and outer circles towards the end, and so on. His predictions as to the renunciation of Narendra Nath and other young disciples were verified later, as we shall see. The main building was a 2-storied one, with 3 rooms below and 2 above. The Master occupied the hall in the center of the upper story, a small room to its left being used by his attendants at night. To the right of the hall was an open terrace where the Master sometimes sat or walked. The hall just below his room and a smaller room to its right were used by the devotees, while a small room to the extreme left was occupied by the Holy Mother. There were some outhouses, 2 tanks, of which one was fairly large, and some good walking pathways. Needless to say, both the Master and the Holy Mother breathed more freely in these new surroundings. A few days passed in overcoming the preliminary difficulties of installation in the new place. Narendra realized that the attendants who volunteered to serve the Master must stay there, the place being too far to permit of their going home for meals, and that meant additional expense. Besides, the number of attendants would have to be increased. The problem of finance might be left to the senior householder devotees, but it was he who must look to the nursing. He realized that he must spend the major portion of his time at Cossipore, for without him, the other young devotees would not be able to carry on the work, in the teeth of opposition from their guardians, or to the neglect of their studies or office duties. Narendra Nath was then preparing for the law examination. Though his studies and a lawsuit with his relatives demanded his constant presence in Calcutta, he decided to do his studying in the Cossipore Garden during his leisure hours. He hoped to be able to provide his mother and brothers with a certain sum of money during the next few years, and then give up the world in quest of God. But destiny ordained otherwise. Sri Ramakrishna was aware of the great difficulties which his devotees faced to ensure his treatment in Calcutta and Cossipore. It would seem that he knew the divine purpose in this phase of his life, and deeming it conducive to their welfare, he did not hesitate to accept their services. He was seen to alter their plans where they did not agree with his, sometimes openly, or without their knowledge when he feared to give offense. Just before coming to Calcutta for treatment, he said to Balaram one day, "That people should start a fund for my maintenance is not to my liking. I'm not used to it. Here the case is really different. Rani Rasmani permanently settled a salary of 7 rupees a month upon me as priest of the Kali temple, which I am to enjoy as long as I live here. Practically, I am living on that pension. So as long as I live outside Dakshineshwar, you'll please bear all my personal expenses." Again, when he heard that the Cossipore Garden had been engaged at a higher rent, he wondered how his poor devotees would meet it every month. He called Surendra to him and said, "Look here, Surendra, these devotees are mostly poor clerks and have large families to maintain. So how can they subscribe the high rent of the garden? Please bear the whole of it yourself." Surendra cheerfully agreed. Similarly, in view of his increasing weakness, Sri Ramakrishna knew that it would soon be impossible for him to go outside to the toilet. Seeing his anxiety, Latu with great earnestness said, "Sir, I shall be your sweeper." These words, uttered with his peculiar Bihari accent, made the master as well as the devotees laugh even in that dismal situation. Thus, Sri Ramakrishna tried by suggestions to minimize the difficulties of his devotees. Gradually, everything became systematic. The young disciples of the master began to stay with him now for the most of the day and night. Narendra was their leader. When they were not occupied in the service of the master, he would bring them together and engage them in meditation, study, discussion, or songs. Thus busied, they were always in a delightful atmosphere, and time passed unnoticed. Attracted by the pure, unselfish love of Sri Ramakrishna on the one hand, and the personality and fraternal spirit of Narendranath on the other, these young men formed a brotherhood more closely knit together than any family. Though the number of these sacrificing youths did not exceed 12, yet every one of them, by the consecration of his life to the service of the Guru, appeared a tower of strength. Shortly after his arrival at Cossipore, Sri Ramakrishna took a short stroll in the garden. The devotees were glad, thinking that he would be strengthened by taking such walks regularly. But it had the opposite effect. His weakness was aggravated, and he could not go out for the next few days. The doctors recommended nourishing food, and in a few days the master felt better and stronger. This improvement continued for some days, and Dr. Sarkar was delighted to see it. 2 young attendants used to go to Calcutta every day to bring the necessary articles of food and to make a report to the doctor. The other boys divided among themselves the tasks of nursing, marketing, and other household duties. The Holy Mother had the charge of preparing the food as well as of feeding the master. When anything special had to be made, Gopal Sr. or Latu gave her the doctor's instructions. Lakshmi Devi, Sri Ramakrishna's niece, was her companion and helper. Sometimes the women devotees of the master would come for a day or two. The monetary affairs of the household were managed by the senior devotees, who also rendered personal service by turns whenever they had leisure. Till every arrangement was complete, none of the young devotees went home, except for a few hours in cases of pressing necessity, and they gave their guardians to understand that until Sri Ramakrishna's recovery, they would not be able to live their old life at home. Finding them so stubborn, the guardians thought it best to give in rather than to lose them altogether. When at the united effort of the grown-up and the young devotees, the treatment and the nursing of the master were going smoothly, Narendra had a little breathing time and thought of going home for a day or two to look after his family affairs. One night, he spoke about it to his brother disciples and went to bed, but he could not sleep. He got up and finding Gopal Jr., Sharat, and a few others awake, he said to them, "Come, let us have a walk in the garden." In the course of the walk, Narendra said to his companions, "The master's disease is very serious. Perhaps he intends to lay down the body. Strive your best for spiritual uplift through service unto him and prayer and meditation, while yet there is time. After his passing, there will be no end to your repentance. We are wasting time in the foolish thought that we shall pray to God after finishing this or that business at hand. We are fastening more chains of desires on us, and desires mean death. We must root them out at once." It was a cold, starry night, and perfect stillness reigned everywhere. Narendra's introspective mind caught the contagion of the hour and felt disposed to meditate. He sat under a tree, and seeing a stack of dry hay and twigs nearby, he said, "Set fire to that." At this hour the monks light their Dhuni fire. Let us do the same and burn up our desires. The fire was lighted. The young devotees, as they put the twigs into the fire, made a holocaust of their desires at the same time. The very thought filled their hearts with unexpected joy. They actually felt that their minds were being purged and that they were coming closer to God. After 2 or 3 hours they put out the fire and retired. Narendra went home according to previous arrangement and returned in a couple of days. About this time, Pandit Shashidhar paid a visit to the master in the Cossipore garden and said, "Sir, the scripture says that saints like you can cure their physical illness by means of willpower alone. If you only concentrate your mind on the affected part, with the resolve that it be cured, you will be cured. Why don't you try it, sir?" The master replied, "You are a scholar, and still you make this thoughtless proposal. This mind has been given up to God once for all. How can I withdraw it from him to turn it on this worthless body?" Such was his resignation to God. Even in his agony, Shashidhar was silenced. But Narendra and other devotees were not. After the departure of Shashidhar, they pressed Sri Ramakrishna to try it. "You must cure your illness," they persisted, "for our sake at least." "Sri Ramakrishna, do you think that I've been undergoing this suffering voluntarily? I do wish to recover. But how is that possible? It all depends upon the mother." "Narendra, then please pray to her for your recovery. She cannot but listen to you." "Sri Ramakrishna, it is easy for you to say so, but such words I can never utter." "Narendra, no sir, that won't do. You must tell the mother about it, at least for our sake." "Sri Ramakrishna, all right, I shall try to do so if I can." After a few hours, Narendra Nath asked the master if he had prayed, and if so, with what result. "Sri Ramakrishna, I said to her, I cannot eat anything due to this pain. Please so arrange that I may eat a little." She showed you all and said, "Why? You are eating through so many mouths." I was ashamed and could not utter another word. What a total indifference to the body. What a firm grasp of the knowledge of oneness. Now another physician undertook the treatment of a master. Dr. Rajendralal Dutt, a distinguished homeopath of Calcutta, had heard of the illness, and of his own accord proposed to try another remedy with the approval of his friend, Dr. Sarkar. The results were good temporarily, and the devotees were encouraged. On the morning of December 23rd of 1885, the master was in a particularly happy mood. He said to Naranjan, "You are my father, I shall sit on your lap." Touching Kalipada's chest, he said, "Be illumined." 2 women devotees also received his blessings that morning. He touched them on the chest with his foot while he was in samadhi. One of them wept as she said, "Oh, you are so kind." The master summoned Gopal Sr. also to bless him. In the evening, he said to Mahendra, "My task of teaching is almost finished. I can no longer instruct people. The whole world I see to be nothing but the Lord. I sometimes think, whom shall I teach?" In the course of the talk, he asked Naranjan, who had just returned from home, how he felt towards him. Naranjan replied, "Sir, formerly I loved you, but now it is impossible to live away from you." Mahendra said, "Sir, the other day I realized what difficulties these boys surmounted to come here and take charge of you." The words stirred the master's feelings deeply, and he fell into a trance. Regaining consciousness, he said, "I saw that everything was passing from the embodied to the disembodied state. I wish to reveal more, but I can't." Well, isn't that trend towards the impersonal an indication of the coming dissolution of the body? Mahendra, perhaps so. Sri Ramakrishna, even now I see the existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute, without names or forms, exists like this. He showed by a gesture. With great difficulty, I curb my feelings. This disease marks out the inner circle of devotees from the outer. Those who have renounced the world and are living here belong to the former class, while those who pay occasional visits and only ask about my health are the latter class. We now come to an event of great importance, showing the Master's wonderful love for his devotees and his extraordinary spiritual power. It was the 1st of January, 1886. Sri Ramakrishna felt much better and wished to take a walk in the garden. It was about 3 in the afternoon. As it was a holiday, about 30 lay disciples were present, some in the hall and others under the trees. When Sri Ramakrishna came down, those in the hall saluted him and followed him at a distance as he walked slowly towards the gate. Girish, Ram, Atul, and some others, who were chatting under a tree, came and saluted the Master. Sri Ramakrishna suddenly said to Girish, "Well, Girish, What have you found in me that you proclaim me before all as an incarnation?" Girish, not at all taken aback by the question, knelt before him with folded hands and said in a voice shaken with emotion, "What can an insignificant creature like me say about one whose glory even sages like Vyasa and Valmiki could not measure?" Hearing these words, spoken with the greatest intensity, Sri Ramakrishna was deeply moved and said, "What more shall I say? I bless you all. Be illumined." Saying this, he fell into a state of semi-consciousness. The devotees heard these solemn words and became mad with joy. They forgot their resolutions to avoid touching him. Overwhelmed with emotion, they moved forward to take the dust of his feet. One by one, they saluted him. At this manifestation of devotion, Sri Ramakrishna's mercy overstepped its bounds, and he touched them all, one by one, with appropriate blessings. This powerful touch revolutionized their minds. Some laughed, others wept, some sat down to meditate, while a few shouted to others who were elsewhere to come and be blessed. Narendra and a few other young devotees, who had passed the greater part of the preceding night in attendance on the Master and in devotional exercises, were asleep. They awoke and hurried to the spot. Latu and Sharat, who took this opportunity to sweep the Master's room and sun his bedding, witnessed the scene from the roof. They preferred to finish their work and kept to their posts. At the approach of his young disciples, the Master regained his normal state and returned to his room. The devotees, upon calming down, realized that the Master was showering his grace upon all without distinction. Questioned about their experiences on this occasion, some said that they had felt a sort of pleasing intoxication, others that they had clearer visions of their chosen ideals than before, still others that they had seen an effulgence or felt the rush of a strange current, while all confessed to having had an inexpressible bliss. Everyone was convinced that it was due to the Master's grace. Only 2 persons did not receive the Master's blessings in this connection. Special mention may be made of a devotee named Haran Chandra Das, who received unusual favor. As he prostrated himself before Sri Ramakrishna, the latter, in that state of trance, placed his foot on his head. The following is the account of Ramlal, the nephew of the Master. "Formerly I could see in meditation only portions of my chosen ideal's form. But that day his entire form flashed before my vision, and I saw him seated in my heart as a distinct living presence." Vaikunta said, "After 2 or 3 devotees have been blessed, I too stepped forward and saluting him asked his blessing. He said, 'You have already everything. Then please make me feel it,' I said. He said, 'All right,' and lightly touched my chest. That worked a strange transformation within me. I saw the blissful form of the Master in everything I saw. I was beside myself with joy and shouted to all to come and share in the blessing. That vision haunted me for days, and my work suffered in consequence. Unable to bear the tension, I had to pray to Sri Ramakrishna to lessen its intensity, after which it became intermittent. It is said that after the incident, Sri Ramakrishna experienced a burning sensation all over the body due, as was alleged, to take on the sins of the persons touched, and asked for some Ganges water to be sprinkled over him, which relieved the suffering. Narendra at this time was burning with a tremendous hankering for realization. We reproduce some of his experiences as recounted by him to M at Cossipore. Narendra, last Saturday, on January 2nd of 1886, I was meditating here. Suddenly, I felt a strange sensation within my chest. Mahendra, the awakening of the Kundalini. Narendra, probably so. I felt clearly the nerves Ida and Pingala and asked Hadra to feel my chest. Yesterday, I saw Sri Ramakrishna upstairs and said, "Everyone has been blessed with realization. Let me too have something. When all I've got it, shall I alone be without it?" He said, "Just make some arrangement for your family, and you shall get all. What do you want?" I said, "I wish to remain immersed in samadhi for 3 or 4 days at a stretch, breaking it only for food." He said, "You are a fool. There's a higher state than that even. Don't you sing, 'Whatever is thyself'? Come here after making some provision for your family, and you shall get a higher state than even samadhi." This morning I went home. They began to take me to task for neglecting my studies when I should be preparing for my examination. I went to my study in my grandmother's house to read, but as I was about to begin, I was seized with a sort of dread, as if it were a most horrible thing to study. There was such struggle in my heart. I never wept like that in my life. Leaving my books and all, I came here. My shoes slipped off somewhere on the road. Dashing past a rick of straw, some of it stuck to me. I ran and ran till I reached here. It was 9 o'clock in the evening of January 4th. Naranjan, Shashi, and M sat near the master, who was just awake after a short sleep. The disease had taken a turn for the worse, and the pain was very great. But still he talked in whispers or by signs about Narendra. He said, "Look at the wonderful state of Narendra. There was a time when he did not believe in the personal aspect of God. Now see how he is panting for realization." Then he hinted that Narendra was soon to reach the goal. That very night, Narendra left for Dakshineshwar with 1 or 2 brother disciples to meditate. Under the master's directions, he had been practicing different forms of spiritual discipline with remarkable success. Sri Ramakrishna was preparing his chief disciple for the great task, which was to be his later. One day, the master expressly commissioned him to look after the young devotees, saying, "I leave them in your care. See that they practice spiritual exercises and do not return home." He was silently training them for the monastic life. And we find him one day asking Narain and the other young men if they would beg their food in the streets. They all hailed the proposal with delight and went out with begging bowls. They cooked the various raw foods which they had received and offered some to the master, who partook of a grain or 2 of rice and said, "Well done. This food is very pure." He was overjoyed to think that it would not be long before these young men, clad in the ochre robe of the sannyasin, would go begging their food from door to door and conferring upon humanity the highest blessings of religion. He was satisfied. On the Shivaratri day, the young group passed the night in chanting and meditation. Narendra, whose austerities were opening up to him new sources of spiritual power, had a fancy to test that power. He asked the fellow disciple Kali to touch him and became absorbed in meditation for some minutes. What he did in these few minutes is not known, but it had the effect of throwing Kali into a very deep meditation. Sri Ramakrishna somehow learned of it and took Narendra to task for frittering away his powers before they were accumulated, as well as for his imposing his ideas on another. Sri Ramakrishna was sinking daily. His body was worn to a skeleton, and his diet was reduced to a minimum. All this grieved the devotees. They knew now that they were going to lose the great mainstay of their life. The hemorrhage terrified them, but the master looked as cheerful as ever. When the pain was excruciating, he would only whisper with a smile, "Let the body and its pain take care of each other. Thou, my mind, be always in bliss." He became even more solicitous for the welfare of his devotees. One night, on March 14th, when he was wide awake, he whispered to Mahendra, "I am bearing all this cheerfully because otherwise you would be weeping. If you all will say that it is better that the body should go rather than suffer this torture, I am willing." Towards morning, Girish arrived with Dr. Upendra and Kaviraj Nangal. The master was slightly better. To the devotees who sat by, he said, "The disease is of the body. Quite naturally, I see that it is made of material particles." Turning to Girish, he said, "I see many forms of a Lord, and this, his own form, too, is one of them." The next morning, he felt better. It was about 8 o'clock. Narendra, Rakhol, Latu, Mahendra, Gopal Sr., and others sat there in gloom. Sri Ramakrishna said, "Do you know what I see? God has become everything. Men and animals appear to be but frameworks coated with skin, and it is he who is moving the head and limbs. As I once saw in a vision, garden, houses, roads, men, and cattle, everything made of wax, composed of the same substance. I see he himself is the executioner, the victim, and the sacrificial post." As he said this, he lost his outer senses. Regaining partial consciousness, he said, "Now I have no pain. I am perfectly at ease." Looking at Latu, he said, "There sits Latu. leaning his head upon his hand. To me, it is as if the Lord were sitting in that posture. As he looked at his devotees, he seemed to be melting in love. He passed his hand over the faces of Rakul and Narendra as a mother caresses her child. A short while after, he said to Mahendra, "Had this body, meaning himself, been allowed to last a little longer, many more people would have been spiritually awakened." He paused for a moment and resumed, "But Mother has ordained otherwise. Less people should take advantage of my simplicity and illiteracy and prevail upon me to bestow the rare gifts of spirituality. She will take me away. And this is an age when devotional exercises are at a sad discount. Rakul, tenderly please ask her to make your body last. Sri Ramakrishna, that depends upon her will. Narendra, your will is at one with hers. Sri Ramakrishna, after a little pause, it won't do any good. How can I ask her for anything when my will is entirely merged in hers?" The devotees sat silent. Sri Ramakrishna gazed at them tenderly, placed his hand on his chest, and said, "Here, that is, within him, are two personalities. One is she, and the other is her devotee. It is the latter who broke his arm, and it is he again who is ill. Do you understand?" The disciples were silent. The master added, "Alas, to whom shall I tell all this, and who will understand me?" Then after a pause he said, "He comes with his devotees as a man, as an incarnation." The devotees again return with him. "Rakul, you must not leave us behind." Sri Ramakrishna, smiling, a band of minstrels appears before a house. They sing and dance, and go away as suddenly as they come. Nobody knows them. The master and the devotee smiled. After a short pause he began, "Pain is unavoidable so long as there is form. That the Lord takes on a form is for the sake of his devotees." Looking affectionately at Narendra, the master gave him some instructions about the state of a man after realization. "Narendra, some get cross with me when I advocate the need of renunciation. Sri Ramakrishna, in a whisper, one must renounce. Pointing to his limbs, suppose one thing is placed under another. If you want to take the former, won't you have to remove the latter? Can you get at that without removing this?" Narendra, "Quite so." Sri Ramakrishna, "When you see everything saturated with that, can you see anything else?" Narendra, "Is renunciation of the world imperative?" Sri Ramakrishna, "As I said, if you see everything as saturated with that, can you see anything else, family or the like?" Sri Ramakrishna praised Narendra's spirit of renunciation. Rakul said, "Narendra now appreciates you thoroughly." To which the master replied, "Yes, and many others are doing the same." At the master's request, Narendra sang some devotional songs which drew tears from the eyes of the master and Rakul. When everything failed to bring about the recovery of the master, the Holy Mother wanted to try spiritual methods. She went to Tarakeswar to obtain the grace of the Lord Shiva for her husband's cure. She lay prostrate before the temple praying, resolved not to touch food till her prayer was answered. On the second night, she was startled by a crashing noise. A great spirit of renunciation overcame her, and she thought, "What are earthly relationships? Are they not mere dreams?" She arose and returned to Cossipore. As soon as the master saw her, he asked, "Well, what is the result of your mission?" The Holy Mother told him what had happened. He seemed to have expected it. The zeal of the young devotees, particularly of Narendra Nath, for realization was increasing. One day, his brother disciples missed him and two others. Subsequently, it was found that, spurred on by the immortal example of Lord Buddha, he with Tarak and Kali had gone to Bodh Gaya, dressed in ochre cloth, to practice austerities. It was feared that he might not return. His absence was much felt by the other disciples at Cossipore. When others wanted to do the same, the matter was reported to Sri Ramakrishna. He assured all that Narendra, convinced of the futility of searching here and there for religion, would soon come back. As a matter of fact, the party did return after a few days, having enjoyed their stay very much at the place of Buddha's nirvana. Kali, too, was struggling for a realization of the highest truth. No lower phase interested him. A wave of doubt swept over his mind. When he consulted the master about it, he was asked, "Do you believe in God?" Kali said, "No, "Do you believe in religion?" "No," replied the boy frankly. "I don't believe in the Vedas or any scriptures. I don't believe in anything spiritual." The master took these words calmly and said, "Had you spoken like this to an ordinary guru, he would have struck you. Look at Narain. He also passed through the same state of doubt, but he now believes in everything. He sheds tears in the name of Radha and Krishna. Your doubts, too, will be dispelled shortly, and you will believe in everything." Great as was the devotion of every one of the attendants to Sri Ramakrishna, that of Shashi was by far the most conspicuous. It was unparalleled. Shashi was the very embodiment of service. He was convinced that the service to the guru was the highest form of religion. He practiced no other spiritual discipline. He knew no other asceticism. Regardless of personal comfort, of food or rest, he was ever at work. His one idea was to alleviate the suffering of the master. He would have given up his life if he thought that would cure him. He had attained perfection through service, so of what use were other forms of discipline to him? Everyone marveled at his indefatigable energy, his sustained power of endurance, and his boundless love for the master. One day, Gopal Sr. expressed his desire to the master to distribute ochre cloths and Rudraksh rosaries among sannyasins. Pointing to his young disciples, Sri Ramakrishna answered, "You won't find better monks than these anywhere. Give your cloths and rosaries to them." Gopal placed a bundle of ochre cloths before the master, who distributed them among his young disciples. One cloth was left, and the master ordered it to be preserved for Girish, who was second to none in his spirit of renunciation. One evening, the master made the young boys go through a ceremony and permitted them to receive food from the houses of all irrespective of caste. Thus, it was that the disciples were initiated into the monastic order by the master himself, and the foundation of the future Ramakrishna order was laid. We have seen Narendra Nath's aspirations for the highest truth and his struggles to attain it. Yet, one evening, as he was meditating, it came to him quite unexpectedly. At first, he felt as if a light had been placed behind his head. Then he passed beyond all relativity and was lost in the absolute. He had attained the nirvikalpa, samadhi. When he regained a little consciousness of the world, he found only his head, but not his body. He cried out, "Where's my body?" Hearing his voice, Gopal Sr. came into the room. Narain repeated the query. "Here it is, Narain," answered Gopal. When that failed to convince Narendra, Gopal was terrified and hastened to inform Master. The latter only said, "Let him stay in that state for a while. He has teased me long enough for it." After a long time, Narendra came to the consciousness of the physical world and found his brother disciples clustered about him. An ineffable peace bathed his soul. When he came to the master, the latter said, "Now the mother has shown you all, but this realization of yours shall be locked up for the present, and the key will remain with me. When you will have finished doing mother's work, this treasure will again be yours." He advised him to be careful about his health for some days and to discriminate in the choice of food. It was the 16th of April. The master was a little better. Girish came to see him. The master inquired about his health and asked Ladu to bring betel and some refreshments for him. A devotee presented the master with some garlands of flowers, which he put on one by one. 2 of these he presented to Girish. He inquired several times if the refreshments had come. When they were brought before him, he barely tasted them and with his own hands gave the rest to Girish. Girish ate them in his presence. It was summer. The master said, "There's good water here." He was too weak to stand, but he wanted to pour water for Girish. He moved, poured some water into a glass, and took a little on his palm to feel if it was cool. It was not cool enough, but knowing that none cooler was available, he gave it to Girish. From his bed, he began to talk almost in a whisper with Girish, Mahendra, and others on various spiritual topics. Girish's faith coming out in bold colors during the conversation. When Girish went to wash his hands, the master sent word to him that he should not eat anything more that evening. Such incidents bring out Sri Ramakrishna's great care for his devotees. It was the 22nd of April. Hirananda Sakaram, a young Sindhi graduate and editor of 2 papers, came from Hyderabad to see the master. An admirer of Chandra Sen, Hirananda was familiar with Sri Ramakrishna and visited him often during his college days in Calcutta. The master, who loved him for his purity of heart, was glad to see him. Sri Ramakrishna asked Mahendra if he knew him. On his answering in the affirmative, the master wished to hear them talk together. As Mahendra kept silent, the master called for Narendra and asked him to talk to Hirananda. After much hesitation, Hirananda said, "Well, why does the devotees suffer? Narendra, the scheme of the world is devilish. I could have created a better world. Hirananda, can there be pleasure without pain? Narendra, I am offering no scheme of the universe, but simply my opinion of the present scheme. But there is one way out. Our only refuge is in pantheism. I am doing everything." Hirananda, that's easier said than done. Narendra began to chant Shankara's 6 stanzas on nirvana. Hirananda, very good. Sri Ramakrishna motioned to him to reply. Hirananda, to look at a room from one corner is just the same as to look at it from the center. The dualistic position of Lord, I am thy servant, leads to realization, as much as the monistic one of I am he. One can enter a room by one door as well as by many. All were silent. Hirananda requested Narendra to sing something. Narendra sang Shankara's 5 stanzas on the loincloth, which Sri Ramakrishna much appreciated. The master then asked him to sing, "Whatever is thyself." Commenting on one line, Hirananda said to Narendra, "Now it is thou art all." Not I but that. Narendra, give me one, and I shall give you 1,000,000. You are I, and I am you. There is nothing else except me. Narendra began to recite some stanzas from the Ashtavakra Samhita, a treatise on jnana. Sri Ramakrishna, to Hirananda, pointing to Narendra, he moves about carrying a naked sword, as it were. To Mahendra, pointing to Hirananda, how docile, as a hooded cobra is before charmer. The master was in an introspective mood. His face was beaming, as if untouched by his terrible pain. Some devotees had brought flowers and garlands for him. He took some flowers and with them touched his head, his throat, his heart, and so on. Then he began to talk to Mahendra. Sri Ramakrishna, the nerve current has begun its upward course, I don't know how long ago. The childlike mood is upon me, and I play like this with flowers. Do you know what I'm seeing? The body appears like a bamboo framework covered with cloth, and it is moving. It moves because there is someone inside, like a pumpkin with its pulp, and seeds scooped out. There is no attachment, passions, or the like within. The interior is perfectly clean, and it was so painful for him to talk that Mahendra added, "And you are seeing the Lord within." Sri Ramakrishna, both within and without. It is the existence, knowledge, bliss, absolute. I see that Satchidananda has taken on this form and is permeating everything, both inside and outside. To Mahendra and Hirananda, after a pause, I look upon you all as relatives. Not one of you seems to be a stranger. I see the Lord alone moving through different forms. I also find that when the mind is joined to him, the pain is not felt. Now I see that the absolute is covered, as it were, with a skin, and this ulcer of the throat lies on one side of it. After another pause, he said, "Spirit and matter sometimes borrow from each other. When the body is ill, the spirit thinks it is ill." Hirananda wanted this point explained. Mahendra said, "When boiling water scalds the hand, we say the water has scalded the hand. Really it is the heat and not the water." Hirananda, to the master, please give your opinion on the point why a devotee suffers. Sri Ramakrishna, the body only suffers. Do you follow me? Then the master hinted that in his case, it was due to the sins of other people whom in exalted moods he had touched and redeemed. A clear case of vicarious atonement. May, June, and July passed, and Sri Ramakrishna's condition went from bad to worse. The devotees realized that the day of his final release from the torments of the body was at hand. They were heartbroken, but resigned themselves to the inevitable decree of providence. In spite of failing forces, the master continued his spiritual work. One day, he initiated Narendra with the name of Rama, which he said was his own Ishtam mantra. It produced a miraculous effect. Narendra was filled with bliss, and in the intoxication of it went round and round the house, uttering the name of Rama. He was in such an exalted mood that none dared approach him. After this had gone on for hours, the other disciples grew alarmed and reported it to Sri Ramakrishna, who simply said, "Let him be. He will recover in due course." But it was 4 o'clock before Narendra regained normal consciousness. During the master's stay at Cossipore, Nag Mahasaya saw him a few times. His visits were not frequent, for he could not bear to see the unspeakable sufferings of the master. One day, Sri Ramakrishna saw him entering the room and said, "Come near. Sit close to me." He warmly embraced Nag Mahasaya for some minutes. Another day, finding him at his bedside, the master said, "Look here, Durgacharan. The doctors have failed. Can you do anything to cure me?" Nag Mahasaya reflected for a minute and then resolved to transfer the master's disease into his own body. He said in an animated voice, "Yes, sir, I know how to cure you. By your grace, I will do it at once." And he approached the master. Sri Ramakrishna divined his purpose and pushed him back, saying, "Yes, I know you can do that." Another day, very near the end of the master's mortal term, Nag Mahasaya was entering his room when he overheard Sri Ramakrishna asking for an amalika fruit and a devotee replying that it could not be had because it was out of season. Without a word, Nag Mahasaya left to search all the gardens about Calcutta for the fruit. For 2 days, nobody saw him. On the 3rd day, he appeared before Sri Ramakrishna with 2 or 3 amalakas in his hand. The master was exceedingly glad to see him. He asked the Holy Mother to cook rice and some hot curry for Durgacharan, who came from eastern Bengal and relished highly spiced food. When it was ready, he took a little of it first because, as he said, Durgacharan would not take it unless it was converted into prasad. Even in the midst of great suffering, the master thought of everything. About 8 or 9 days before his passing, Sri Ramakrishna asked Jogan to read to him from the Bengali almanac the dates from the 25th Shravana, August 9th onwards. Jogan read until he came to the last day of the month. The master then made a sign that he did not want to hear any more. 4 or 5 days after this, the master called Narendra Nath to his side. There was nobody else in the room. He made Narendra sit before him and, gazing at him, fell into samadhi. Narendra Nath felt a subtle force like an electric shock penetrating his body. Gradually, he too lost outward consciousness. He did not remember how long he sat there. When he came to normal consciousness, he found Sri Ramakrishna weeping. On being asked why he wept, the master said, "Today I have given you my all and have become a fakir. Through this power you will do immense good to the world, and then only shall you go back." It was in this way that Sri Ramakrishna passed on his powers to Narendra. Henceforth, Ramakrishna and Narendra Nath became as one soul. What the effect of this holy confluence was is a commonplace of history now, and we need not tell of it here. Suffice it to say that Vedanta, as revivified in the life of the master, found in the person of the worthy disciple an effective instrument to bring about worldwide regeneration. A couple of days later, the idea entered Narendra's mind of testing Sri Ramakrishna's statement that he was an incarnation. He said to himself, if in the midst of this dreadful physical pain he could declare his Godhead, then I shall believe him. Strange to say, the moment this thought came to him, Sri Ramakrishna, summoning all his energy, said distinctly, "He who was Rama and Krishna is now Ramakrishna in this body, but not in your Vedantic sense." Narendra was stricken with shame and remorse for having doubted the master, even after so many revelations. At last, the eventful day arrived, a day of intense grief for the devotees. It was Sunday, August 15th, the last day of Shravana. The master's suffering was at its highest. He became restless. The pulse was irregular. Atul, whose skill in feeling the pulse the master often praised, was the first to realize the gravity of the situation. He declared the case to be hopeless and asked the attendants to be on the alert. A little before dusk, the master felt difficulty in breathing. The devotees wept in grief. The light that illumined their hearts was, humanly speaking, about to be extinguished. They stood by the bedside of the master. In the evening, he complained of hunger. The attendants tried to give him a little liquid food, but he could swallow very little of it. They washed his mouth and carefully laid him on the bed, stretching his legs and supporting them with pillows. 2 attendants were fanning him. Suddenly, the master fell into samadhi. The body became stiff. There was something about this samadhi which struck Shashi as unusual, and he began to weep. Girish and Ram were sent for. After midnight, Sri Ramakrishna regained consciousness and said that he was exceedingly hungry. He was helped to sit up and took a full cup of porridge without discomfort. It was many days since he had so little difficulty in eating. He said he was quite refreshed. Narendra suggested that he should go to sleep. At this, the master, in a clear voice, another unusual thing, uttered thrice the name of Kali and gently lay down. Seeing the master was comfortable, Narendra went downstairs to rest. Suddenly, at 2 minutes past 1, a thrill passed through the master's body, making the hair stand on end. The eyes became fixed on the tip of the nose. The face was lit up with a smile. The master entered into samadhi. It was Mahasamadhi, for nevermore did he return to the mortal plane. Thus, in the early hours of Monday, the 16th of August, 1886, Sri Ramakrishna departed from the world, leaving a host of stricken devotees and admirers. The greatest man the 19th century had produced went back to the eternal state from which he had come. Though it was a brilliant moonlit night, the hearts of the devotees were in dark shadow. A few minutes before, nobody was richer than them, but now they were the poorest beings on earth. The more they looked at the serene face of the master, the more desolate and helpless they felt. Who would solve their doubts and difficulties? Who would stand by them in their sorrows and sufferings? Their sense of loss was overwhelming. Girish and Ram came shortly after. The dismal news quickly spread all over Calcutta, and people thronged in the morning from all directions to have a last look at the master's divine form. Colonel Vishwanath Upadhyaya arrived at about 8. He found the body stiff, but there was still some trace of heat. He began to rub the spine, and after some time declared that all was not yet over, that it was a state of deep samadhi. He advised the devotees to wait before doing the last honors to the body. At about noon, Dr. Mahendra Lal Sarkar came and after examining the body said that life had passed out only half an hour before. His opinion was accepted as final, and arrangements were made for the funeral. At 5 o'clock, the sacred body was brought down and laid on a cot. It was dressed in ochre cloth and decorated with sandal paste and flowers. At the instance of Dr. Sarkar, a photograph of it was taken with the devotees standing around. An hour later, the body was carried to the burning ghat at Baranagar to the accompaniment of devotional music. Spectators wept as they saw the procession pass. The body was placed on the funeral pyre. Trailokya Nath Sanyal sang some suitable songs, and within a couple of hours everything was finished. A calm resignation came to the devotees as they prepared to leave the cremation ground, for they all realized the Master's eternal presence within. He, their Lord, was the same in the disembodied state as in the physical life. In his own words, he had passed from one chamber to another, that was all. They put the sacred relics of the Master's body into an urn and returned to the Cossipore garden. The nest, alas, of 1,000 painfully sweet memories, shouting, "Victory to Bhagwan Ramakrishna." I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.